Let's now touch base with our reporter at Nasrec, Aviwe Mtila. Aviwe, what's the latest coming from Nasrec this hour?
Well, we've had the Treasurer General of the African National Congress, the first female TG, address us here, of course, talking roughly just about plans, not only for the African National Congress, but the economy. But we do know the finances of the ANC are at a fore. She says that she'll now be meeting different stakeholders and just get a briefing on what can be done in the medium and long term to address those financial woes. But just on stage now, the person that just jumped off the stage is the Communication and Digital Technologies Minister, Minister Njaveni. Thank you for joining us at eNCA, Minister. But you mentioned a number of areas which I want to touch on, digital skills being one of them. But I want addressing those digital skills in the South African context where we have rural schools that don't even have access to network or data or anything of the sorts. How do you then address the issue of digital skills?
Thank you for that question. I think what we need to do is government has been very bad at communicating. The Department of Basic Education has started to teach coding and analytics to our schools. There are 1,000 schools across the country already that are having coding and analytics at that level. And we're saying how to expand that. But to expand that is not only about the teaching of that, but it's to introduce some of the course content into which are digital. For instance, you've got more than 5,000 high schools in South Africa that are science and maths, what we call STEM schools. But some of those schools, they do not, some of that 5,000 do not have laboratories, physics and chemistry and biology laboratories. But at the AI Institute launch, the young people who were in the hackathon developed virtual laboratories. So the plan is, and the president will announce the details, the plan is that we roll out that virtual laboratories to enable the young people in the rural areas who do not have access to a laboratory to be able to do the science experiments themselves. But it would mean when you're introducing a tech-driven content in education, they'll also develop the digital skills, because sometimes the skills are acquired not through normal teaching, but we are also working with the Department of Basic Education to make sure we expand quickly and working with industry. The rollout of coding and data analytics and robotics in more schools to expand beyond the 1,000 schools that are spread across the country. Because our view is that if you do a rollout of 1,000 schools per annum, it will take this country over 20 years to get the digital skills with the time we do not have. But also our other approach on digital skills is that you cannot call a mass meeting, like I was saying on stage, and train people on using fintech or whatever. But if you go and use the township and rural economy players, your spaza shops, your market, the people who sell in the hawkers, if you give them point of sale devices, they can be able to then use that with their people when they're transacting, and then people then acquire the skill and using a phone, because nowadays you don't need to have the devices on your phone. And that's why we're saying the issue of the shutdown of 2G and 3G in South Africa is not a negotiable, because it's going to hold the country back, because they don't give us smart devices. We must talk about 4G and 5G as we plan towards 6G. Why is that? Is because we must make everybody be able to access an affordable smart device, because in 2 to 3 years' time, a smart device will no longer be an optional. It will be a necessity.
I want to move on to the Post Bank, State Bank, where suggestions are it's not serving its purpose of being the vehicle, the bank for the rural and the townships. How can this be addressed? You've been at the helm for 15 months now as the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies.
So the Post Bank is not yet a state bank, and at some point the Prudential Authority had to give them conditions. They could not recruit new clients and so forth because they were not fulfilling the conditions as set by the Prudential Authority, because the Reserve Bank has rules on how banks must operate. So when we took over the portfolio, our focus was to make sure that the Post Bank meets the commitments that they've made and the conditions that were made by the Prudential Authority or the Reserve Bank. The part of the Reserve Bank that deals with banks is the Prudential Authority, and we have so far met those conditions, except for the bill that is in Parliament, that Parliament must finalize in the first quarter of the new year. If that is done, we'll be able to then submit our license applications for them to process. But with that, we are also repositioning it to do other things. We are repositioning it to become the bank for for SMMEs to introduce new financial services to their clientele, to get more clients. And I don't want to announce other things that the president will have to announce at the SONA, but we are working to make sure the Post Bank is turned around. After the SONA, we'll then give a detailed media briefing around the Post Bank and its repositioning. At that point, I think the Parliament will also have finalized its own processes.
Okay, we're at the elective conference. I have to come to politics now. We saw surprises from Limpopo, a surprise pronouncement by the PEC that suggested that they're doing a U-turn in supporting President Cyril Ramaphosa, but now supporting the candidacy of Zweli Mkhize. Divisions in Limpopo, is it going to be addressed? What's going to happen? What are the discussions within the leadership of Limpopo?
No, I think I must correct your statement. It was not the PEC. It was individuals who made the announcement. The PEC issued a statement that said, as Limpopo, we are reaffirming our commitment to support the president, because the decision taken was a decision of the provincial conference and the decision of our branches. The statement was available. We can share so that you can know.
And prominent individuals, the deputy chairperson of the province, making that pronouncement and suggesting that it's a decision that they've taken as leadership of the province.
The provincial secretary clarified the same and even did interviews with yourself to indicate the position of the province remains that we support President Ramaphosa and those we have resolved on. We said we're supporting President Ramaphosa. We said we're supporting our chairperson who was contesting for the national chair. Unfortunately, he lost. We were supporting the former TG, who's now the deputy president, Comrade Paul Mashatile, for the deputy president position. That was stated in our statement because that's what we resolved on. The provincial secretary, who's the custodian of ANC resolutions of the province, clarified the position of the PEC.
But then what happens of the statement made then by the deputy chairperson, or what are the conversations within the leadership, your PEC member as well, about what was pronounced, for example, by some of the leaders?
I think that we'll have to go back home as Limpopo to deal with that, not only as PEC, but as branches of the ANC in Limpopo to say, what do you do when you have given a direct mandate? Yes, we come to conference to be lobbied and to lobby others, to influence and to be influenced, but individuals cannot take decisions on behalf of branches. There was no consultations with branches to say, can we change? There was no consultations with delegates to say, can we change? We'll have to go back and report back. Remember, after conferences, we all go back to report to say what happened in terms of what we were mandated, what were we able to achieve in terms of leadership preferences, what were we able to achieve in terms of resolutions preferences of the, and what happened that when we got influence and get lobbied. We'll have to leave that to both the decisions of the branches of Limpopo, because the constitution of the ANC provides that the branches, as the basic unit of the organization, will have sway on what happens, and then they have the right to do what has to be done.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister. Communications and Digital Technologies Minister there, clarifying just some of the issues that came out of conference, but of course also talking on the much needed digital skills at the backdrop, the last Progressive Business Forum that have been happening for the last 4 days here.
All right, Aviwe, thank you very much for that reportage. That senior reporter Aviwe Mtila coming to us live from the Nasrec grounds.